This week on the Legion Clubhouse, cooned there, a cooned there, everywhere a cooned. What's going on?
They were the heroes from the future, teenagers protecting the universe from those that would sow the seeds of chaos. Each had unique powers and abilities, and though they often had their differences, they came together to save the day as the Legion of Superheroes. Now, you can be a part of their adventures and learn the history of the future in the Legion Clubhouse.
Okay, so we are into issue 2, and as I mentioned last week, and several other people commented as well, this is one of those things that if you're not a deep cuts person, you're going to miss out on a lot of stuff. You're going to come in lost. It may be a turnoff for you. At least one of our listeners said that they were like, kind of know what was going on when I picked this up, and I just figured I'd force my way through it, and it would make sense eventually. Well, eventually would be when they rebooted in 0 Hour in about a year and a half. But in the meantime, there are still a lot of things that, man, there's a lot of questions going on. Now, certainly helping fill in the backstory is the Omicron, which this month is telling about the happy times of the upcoming nuptials between Phantom Girl and Ultra Boy, and then the ultimate death or / disappearance of Phantom Girl, leaving poor Ultra Boy all alone.
Yeah. 3 years prior to the events of this issue.
Yeah.
Almost exactly. So 2 years after we last saw the team in the Magic Wars.
Yes.
But... we're on Rimbor.
Yeah, so
Scum center of the galaxy.
I guess last time was there an intergalactic war that the Coons end up taking like half the galaxy?
We're not sure. Last time we did, there was a reference of war between Brow and Imsk.
Yeah.
And there was clearly something going on because the bits and pieces that we got last time around indicated that the United Planets had collapsed.
Yeah.
The Dominators seem to be a much larger force.
Yeah, they're in play in this next issue.
The Dominators seem to be on Earth, but I don't remember whether we had any Kundian stuff or not.
Well, here they seem to imply. So on page 3, on Rimbor, there's this Kund that is in charge of whatever the Empire or whatever. He's working in the nudie club, and they're talking about Kono, the new girl who appears in this issue. And it just feels like, and especially when we see several of the armed guards running through the streets, the SPs really feel more like Kund outfitted SPs than Science Police. They've really taken on an Atomic Knights football player, NFL kind of death squad kind of thing.
Yeah, faceless, fascist, jackboot stormtroopers.
Yeah.
And intentionally so. It's interesting that, these particular SPs are apparently running after some new girl, but also are willing to use lethal force because they see the person or person unknown, who we'll probably get to in a second, and start shooting, just immediately start shooting at her. And I can't decide whether that's implying, well, maybe she has some sort of special powers as she passes through a wall. But it could also mean that these are fascist jackbooted thugs who, shoot first and ask questions later.
So we do find out in this issue, I believe, that Jonah is in charge or is part of a smuggling operation, and that she is part of his team. And so he is basically smuggling goods in and out of the system to make sure that people have whatever people have, and I guess make a buck in the process. So we do get to meet Britta Anan from Sklar. And
he's a Sklarian raider. If you remember the Sklarian raiders from back in issue 230 or 235. You remember when the Sklarian raiders were like running around and Yeah. They were trying to destroy the United Planets because they felt like United Planets interference turned Sklar into a hellscape.
Yeah. And so, so it's very interesting that maybe just because of what the Sklarians had done before, that they are attack on sight any Sklarian. But it's very weird what's going on. And again, this is issue number 2. Who wouldn't pick up issue number 1 and then issue number 2 and still scratch their head and say, I have no idea what's going on, except maybe the Legion is getting back together. And then you've got these Tweedledee and Tweedledum. I call them the Goofy Gophers. These 2 Death Squad guys that they're blue, so I don't think they're coons, but they certainly act like coons. But they're certainly very apologetic to one another.
I think they're probes. I don't know for sure, but I think they are.
Well, the probes I thought were eyeless. I thought.
Do they have eyes?
These guys do. Yeah, they have red eyes.
Alphonse and Gaston. Oh, so they do. I mean, sorry, Al Gronskin for sure. Yeah, they are based on the Alphonse and Gaston cartoon from like the turn of the century.
Yeah, which I think is what they used to do the Goofy Gophers on.
Right. Exactly. The Goofy Gophers riffed on that.
Oh, no. After you. No, after you. No, after you. No. And it became kind of a meme from, I guess, whenever 1906 onward, it became kind of a meme to say no after you. Oh, pardon me, no after you, my dear Alphonse.
Mm-hmm. And it really is kind of neat because these characters are, as we mentioned, I'm going to say this a lot during this run of League, they are brutal thugs. They are just big, schmucky monsters, probably like cyborgs from what happens to them when they actually tussle with Joe. But
yeah,
they are no, after you. Oh, dear brother, first you must confirm the data. You're simply too kind. And I kind of like that thing because you can imagine them speaking like this and being voiced by Rex Harrison.
Well, in fact, if you look at whoever is giving them their marching orders there on page 6, looks straight up one of the skinheads from Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that their marching orders initially came from the Kundian with the bad interlac. You have my symphony, Mr. Chairman, but it is of little consequence. I just hear that character with the Russian accent. We would pay extremely for opportunity to eradicate Kono.
Yeah.
But that guy is a hoot. And again, it's another
I think he's a coon.
Shush. These early issues are just, they're packed to the gills with stuff. Yeah. And as you look and you watch the stuff and you see the interlac signs in the background and you see these little bits and pieces, there's a moment where all of a sudden, something's going on in Stig A Plaza. Stig A is Reflecto's real name. Do you remember Reflecto, who wasn't Superboy?
Yeah.
But also wasn't Ultra Boy, but somehow was Superboy in Ultra Boy's body while never actually appearing himself as Reflecto?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what any of that is about. But
yeah, this is just somebody had said that it's the Tom and Mary Bierbaum doing a lot of this stuff. Which is fine. I don't mind it. I didn't catch any of that stuff that you said. But then again, I'm trying to just figure out, okay, what's going on here? Who's who? What, why is this making sense or not making sense? The over-reliance on the 9-panel grid, I think maybe we need a lot of information being packed in.
Right.
And certainly there are times like on page 4 where they're chasing Britta through the streets where the 9-panel grid really looks cool, where they're running between panels and everything. But you get so into that. Panels create pacing in comics. And so you get kind of in this repetitive dun, 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 like the marching boots of fascism coming ever closer. And then suddenly we go to a television commercial also in that 9-panel grid. And then we're immediately back to the 9-panel grid with a story going on. And it's just, it kind of is a bit distracting. and even maybe a little bit more confusing when they're wedging these little bits of world building and letting you in on, hey, what's going on with this Wanderer guy, and what's going on with Magneto
Dark
Ball.
Tower.
Yeah. And so it's Magno Ball, I guess.
I love the 9-panel grid in these first few issues because, first of all, it's 1988. The 9-panel grid at this point means Watchmen.
Yeah.
And Watchmen means
serious,
deep,
grown up.
Well, not even just that. It means layers. Watchmen means, we're dealing with this kind of thing. And not only do Tom and Mary fill this stuff with deep cuts about the Legion lore, there are deep cuts about their friends from the Legion IPs and all of the fans who have been part of the Legion going back to the 70s, the late 60s even.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll see characters, you'll see, oh, look, Breck Bannon, hey, that's Polar Boy. Then you see a bunch of other names, and you're like, these are all references to their friends from the Legion, APs and
mailing lists and everything.
Letter mailing lists, yeah. So, but it really is, to me, as you said, that the marching boots of fascism, the 9-panel grid not only gives us what feels like so much more material. Rodrigo would definitely tell us this is a wall of text, but
I don't know about a wall of text, but it's, a wall of text certainly is what the Omicron is doing. Yeah. And, depending on how you're reading this, if you're reading it in a digital, because all of these are available digitally and you're reading a page at a time, you may get to a page where, I think it's in this issue. It is on, you get to the end of page 22 and you're like, oh, that's the end of the issue because it's got the little Legion and it's got all the, Mark Waid is an editor on this. And then you're like, oh, okay, that's the end of the issue. Nope. There's one more page of stuff that you need to read in that. Mm-hmm. And so I think that while I don't mind it. I actually like what's going on in here. But I think maybe everyone is just like, oh my gosh, look what the 9-panel grid did. Let's all do the 9-panel grid. And that's something that happens in all media, right? You look at what, and again, people are going to groan or going to cheer. Look and see what Zack Snyder did in movies, and then look at how everybody wants to copy that style or those tropes that he uses that make this a Zack Snyder film, and they just use it all over the place without really, really thinking, why am I going slow, fast, slow? Why am I using the super wide lens, or why am I using the super narrow lens? It's just like, well, it looks cool, so let's do the same thing. And I don't know if that's happening here, but certainly by this time, as you said, with the Watchmen really making use of this 9-panel grid, I think a lot of people are just like, everything's got to be 9-panel grids. And I don't know if it does, because honestly, I think that television commercial could be a lot better without the 9-panel grid.
Well, and the television commercial does have round edges. That's how you know it's on a screen.
Yeah.
I feel like the thing that they're trying to give us is a clear signal that this is not the Legion that we're used to.
Mm-hmm.
And, the 9-panel grid is cramped, and it does feel a little oppressive. And that's intentional. We're in an oppressive world, an oppressive storyline. I feel like at this point, Giffen and Gordon and the Bierbaums and whoever all is involved in putting this together, because there are like 19 people, I think, writing this at this point. All of these people kind of are on the same page. And that page is a universe that has gone to crap. And so that kind of, I really do kind of like the use of the 9-panel grid here. But one of the things that I can't stand about reading digital is guided view.
Oh, if you don't have to, yeah. I mean, you don't have to go to guided view.
But if I have to go guided view to read the page, and sometimes I do,
yeah, small.
If you have to go guided
letters.
view, it ruins it for me. I remember reading this book and going, oh my God, every issue just feels like it's just full of stuff. And here's Britta in the sewers, and here's, Al Gronsky and Fref Rumpt are going to be like, aha, how shall we do this? Let's blow up a whole neighborhood.
Now, we'll say, when they blow up the neighborhood, that looks really cool. That is really where you take that 9-panel grid and you subvert it. Just like I said, when they were running through the streets on page 6, where the first 3 panels on that page are all interconnected. And then you get to the explosion at the end and you're just like, holy cow, that looks really, really cool to kind of show you. There are some things that I would have done maybe a little bit differently in this 9-panel grid, but I think that it works really, really well to just suddenly you're going along and then suddenly everything is just exploding in your face.
Yeah. And on page, I want to say 10, where Ginny, who, by the way,
who is Ginny? Is she a nobody?
She's a nobody.
Okay.
She's the first named black character in the book.
Yeah.
5 panels later, she's dead, which
now is
is
it implied that these two are in a romantic relationship, Jonah and Ginny?
I don't know about romantic, but they're definitely boning. Can I say that?
I mean, you did.
Okay. They're definitely engaging in adult relations. And, that's a whole thing. But when you do get to the point where you see Ginny, Joe has this friend. What happened to Tina? We know from the beginning of this issue that he and Tina were going to get married.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden he's sleeping with Ginny, or seemingly sleeping with Ginny, because she's like literally naked. He's shaving. She's getting dressed. These are people who are, they are in some sort of physical relationship. But then she walks out the door and meets Al Gronskin geflirtet. And that 9-panel grid breaks just enough to show them brutally murdering her. So you get 8 panels and just a blood splash. And then you get that last panel. And man, that break really hits me hard. I wish we had another character of color. And,
I mean, we have
Kono's yellow.
We have Britta. She's yellow.
Kono is bright yellow with blue hair and doesn't count.
Yeah.
You had this argument with me back in 73 when they're like, we have green Legionnaires and blue Legionnaires and this guy's orange.
Yeah, no, it doesn't quite work that way, but it is weird that they do that. Yeah.
It feels like they want to show us that this is a more representational. I don't like the word diversity because diversity has, people have made it a bad thing, but more representational, more people that you would actually see if you walked out, even me walking out in the streets of Kansas. And so that's good. And they also want to show us that it's a brutal new world, not like the Legion you used to know, where people can get, their brain smashed in on a corner. And that's interesting. It's just that by doing both together, it sets a precedent that I just find a little icky.
Yeah.
A little icky.
Yeah.
And then in space.
We get to see how the other half live. That's for sure.
He's rich. He's got that brand family fortune.
Yeah.
That there chameleon boy got more money than Ted Turner.
Oh yeah. Now that was that was basically implied in the last episode, right? In the first issue, where he's basically taken over his father's wealth and everything. But it is interesting to just see people sitting around and talking about this. And I'm guessing who do we have here in this? In these pages?
This is Loomis, which is Rock's friend. Do you remember Loomis lived out last issue? Loomis was living out in the radiation zone.
That's right. He was
Loomis
he
is
shaved and cleaned up. Yeah, he's shaved and cleaned up. Okay.
He's a Brayllian. He lost an arm in the same incident that cost Vi her eye, which we referenced last time, and seemed to cost Rock his magnetic powers.
Right.
We don't know much about it yet. We just know that this happened.
Yeah. Okay. So we got Loomis and who is the woman here?
Night Girl.
Oh, okay. All right. So
Night
he is.
Girl,
Oh, yeah, that's right. Because
right.
I mean, we don't see that in here, and of course, she's not wearing her traditional darker blue colors. The only way you would remember that is if you remember she was wearing purple in the previous issue a month ago. But yes, this was the thing where Rock said he would only go do this if Loomis took Night Girl off planet and kept her safe. So they are obviously trying to do that amid all the carnage and chaos as Jonah attempts to take down our 2 bounty hunters.
You know what I want to see? I want to see the buddy comedy of that Hycraean and that Prody on on page 12,
Yeah.
where you're just like, it's like Hope and Bing Crosby out there. Well, what do you want to do now? I don't know. You're a snotball. Well, you're a fish man. You could have that whole thing.
But we know that that's not Tellus, right? Or is that Tellus?
No, that's not Tellus. No,
okay.
Tellus's coloring is different.
Okay.
It is, however,
it's been 5 years.
It has, but it is a Hycraean, and it is somebody who, because Tellus was the first Hycraean to leave the planet.
Right.
So this is that moment where we're just like, oh, Hycraeans now come off the planet, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of neat.
Yeah. There's a pretty good fight sequence that goes on, and we get to learn a little bit more about Kona's powers and her name and where she comes from and how she's not like Phantom Girl because she's able to manipulate the gravity of the situation.
She basically, rather than pass through something, she lends it her mass, causing her molecules to go through it, which is, just a snotty way of saying she passes through walls.
Yeah.
But isn't it weird that Joe would end up hanging around with another phaser? Do you think that he took Kono under his invulnerable wing because she reminded him of Tina?
Probably not. Although he may have a type.
I'm used to a girl who passes through. He does.
He has a type. So
he also has the baddest James Bond line where they're like, "Oh, how did you know to use your invulnerability?" He's like, "I don't drop it.
Never take it off."
Yeah.
Yes.
It's
always on. I'm always angry. That's
Ultra Boy for the yeah. That is exactly what it is. That's my secret cap moment.
Yep.
And it really does show us that in this new Legion, lacking a Superboy, lacking a Mon-El or not, Ultra Boy is our big hitter. Ultra Boy is the most powerful thing on the entire planet. And it's really kind of interesting, although this is the first time that they highlight a problem that just gets bigger and bigger and bigger throughout this run of Legion. So I'm going to mention it here. When I come back in a couple of issues and I talk about it again, just remember issue 2 is where we first see this. But man, he just wades into those two big blue robo dudes and starts ripping and tearing off heads and just like, oh, that's disturbing.
Yep. We get to check in with Siobhan Aaron. We see what she's up to, and then we cut to some woman with a blonde mohawk who puts on an orange wig. I have no idea who this person is, but she's got the probes.
Cersei.
Oh, that's right, Cersei, but not Cersei from like Wonder Woman Cersei, right?
Nope. This is the first appearance of Cersei. We don't know where Cersei is from.
Okay.
Although we do find out that Siobhan is from the planet Dwar. Here's your deep cut. Dwar is one of the planets who, back when the Sun Eater was coming, Dwar was one of the planets that told the Legion, oh, there's no reason that we should try and fight because there's no way you're going to defeat this. And so Dwar was like giving up. But apparently Siobhan is not just from Metropolis. She's from another planet.
And and apparently this woman is having relations with Dirk. And so Dirk is a bad guy now. I mean, these probe people are able to see what everybody is doing, and that's creepy.
Dirk is working for the United Planets, or for EarthGov in this case, since there's no more United Planets. Dirk, I think, has made himself a comfortable place in the world, and he's not looking too hard at the consequences of his comfort. And it's really nice to see Dirk, who's always been the hedonist and the schmuck and the, I'm going to go and I'm going to sleep with Gigi now. Why? Because I feel like sleeping with Gigi now. Seeing him in this role actually kind of, I don't want to say it makes sense, but it follows from the place that we saw him last. And so that's kind of neat. But I don't know if I'd call him a bad guy so much as just a guy who shouldn't be where he is. Schmuck.
And then we get a mysterious character here on the last page, which they reveal in the next issue.
The voices in
which
the head from last issue.
which I'm going to say that this character is going through his Ziggy Stardust phase. But I do have a question. Why is there such a push towards French clothing for the elite? Like, I mean, I'm sure there's an allegory going on here, but it's like
Mhm.
everybody's wearing like pirate clothes, like puffy pirate shirts and
Mhm.
aristocrat stuff. And it's just kind of
So
weird.
you have to think about the actual fashions of the year 1988. 1988 was a year of
Yeah,
big square shoulders.
where's everybody with their parachute pants and
But this is the
their
future.
boat shoes or the
Stop it.
29th century version of boat
So
shoes?
if you look at the big shoulder pads, you look at those Patrick Bateman suits that are, relatively just a simple kind of like a Dolce
Who
and
was the one
Gabbana
that
suit.
did that?
Or
But that was a what's his name? Who did the Shadow and he did American Flag and
Howard Chaykin
Howard Chaykin. I think he's the one that
with the
brought
big
these
shoulders and the
designs.
jackboots.
I think he's the one that brought these designs into the mainstream. So everyone was like, "Oh, if Howard Chaykin's doing it, then everybody has to do this." And so
I
we
honestly feel
see
like this is the opposite. This
really
is,
okay.
yeah, I feel like, because this is 88, remember? Yeah, if you said 93, I would agree with you. I feel like this is, how can we make the future look not like the fashions of today? How can we get away from like the Princess Diana dress with the peplums and the poofy shoulders? How can we get away from those, clean cut suit lines that are just like, oh, hello, I'm Patrick Bateman. I murdered 4 people or not. How do you get away from Don Johnson in a pink blazer all rolled up to his elbows, or Corey Feldman in everything? And I feel like they're like, you know what? Pirates are not in. Let's have everybody look like a pirate.
I
And
mean,
so
but
we're going
that's
to
also
have
goes
this.
back to the Watchmen too, where
Sure, but
everyone's
then
like, "Oh,
you
there's a
have
huge
that.
pirate story, so we have to have pirate influence and everything." No, it's a metaphor.
You,
You
will you
dope.
stop with we have to have everything and everything? No, that is not true. You're bad. Okay,
No,
wait.
no, it's not, dude. It literally is how the world works. If you don't
I'm just
understand that, then
saying.
how do you understand
I
meme
don't.
culture?
I don't think that that's what's happening here. I
Well,
think
we
that
can
they were
disagree, but that
trying.
is what I think. But you can't just say, no, you're wrong and dumb.
Well, I could. I mean, I
No,
wouldn't
you
mean
really
it, but
shouldn't.
if you look at okay, so look at the big square shoulder guys.
Yeah, no, I get it. I know what the look is.
Right.
It's been around, it started up in the Magic Wars. We already saw all these fashion things.
Mhm.
I'm just saying that if you're trying to pinpoint something, all of a sudden
Mhm.
everybody is doing this thing. And there's a person who is responsible for it. I don't think that everything is fashion of the times, or else every comic book
No,
would be doing this stuff.
I think that this is intentionally going away from the fashion of the time, which is why we're seeing the pirate stuff. But by the time we look back at this, the pirate stuff has come and gone like twice. Because
Yeah.
in the mid 90s, 93, 94, you get that weird kind of pirate influence, and you get the guys in the big long dusters, and you get all of that crazy stuff going on. I honestly feel like this is another example of the Legion accidentally being ahead of its time, but I feel like they're trying to actually look out of date because it's the future, if that makes sense. They're trying, like when Mike Grell made
Well,
everybody be in tiny little outfits, and
I think
everybody
they're
in the
just trying to
real
make
world.
a allegory to the elites or all these French aristocrats that are about to head to the guillotine by the time it's all said and done. And
in
everyone else.
1988.
No, but I mean, as an allegory of, look at how look at how
Ah.
these aristocrats dress. They dress just like the
Right.
French aristocrats of the French Revolution, and look how that
Right.
turned out for them. And so that's a metaphor for maybe how things are going to turn out for these characters. But
And in the specific case of Roxas and or Rojas,
well, we don't
it
know that
is
yet. But yeah.
well, oh, sorry. The specific case of the unnamed creature at the end of this issue, who we saw or we heard at the end of last issue, all of the
Mhm.
voices arguing in the dark. Now we see that they're coming out of the same face.
Yeah.
It is a very unfortunate case of a queer-coded villain because he's wearing eyeshadow and big lipstick, and he's wearing, the big floofy outfits. And I feel
just,
like,
because he doesn't, when we get into that second issue, I guess he's still wearing some, um,
yeah,
lipstick,
he's
but
wearing.
I mean, I don't know. I guess when I say, he reminds me of Lawrence Welk and Liberace, and then it's like, oh, wait a minute. No, that's right on for this. So
See,
yeah.
media literacy works for you, even when you don't realize it.
If you enjoy the show, we would appreciate your support. You can find out more and become a Legion Clubhouse member at patreon.com/major spoilers.
Okay, issue 3 is an issue that kind of irritates the crap out of me.
Oh, how come?
Because there's a character who we had all of this growth going on. Like, remember the big arc with Block and how he's trying to find his people and all of that stuff's happening? And then we get to here, and it's like, oh no, Roxas is, who turns out to be the bad guy here. You remember Roxas, don't you, Matthew? Yeah. He basically kills Block, and as in his dying vision, he gets to meet with Strata, the female version, who just leads him to the underworld, and that's it, and he's dead.
The afterlife, yeah.
Yeah, that really kind of irritated me.
I know what they were going for, and I do feel like targeting Block thematically, targeting that innocent Legionnaire who we've said for a couple of years now, I've said that Giffen always treated Block as though he was 12. When we last saw Block, he was like an angry 14-year-old with big, giant volcanic pimples. But the death of Block, I think, is supposed to be, this is the catalyst. This is the point where whoever or whatever is trying to keep the Legion down messes up because they attacked the most innocent one. Now, it is brutal. It is ugly. It is absolutely unconscionable in universe. But I mean, at this point, Roxas has already murdered a whole planet.
Yeah.
So murdering a man who is literally made of planet is kind of actually a step down. But I do not like the death of Block.
I said, it really kind of irritated me. It seems like a kind of like the other torture sequence in here. I get it. The future sucks, and fascism sucks, and bad people suck. But Mordru is back again. Mordru's back again. Mordru's a constant torture, death, rebirth, and torture again of the last Green Lantern is also somewhat, I don't know.
It's horrifying.
It's horrifying, but it's Ron Vidar. For those of you who don't remember who the last Green Lantern is. It's not. You got to remember. It's cruelty for cruelty's sake, I guess, is what I'm getting at. And again, we see that all around us right now. We can't escape it, and maybe that's the point. They should have killed Mordru when the Magic Wars ended, but here he is, and he's also letting the probes do whatever. It's just
psychically monitor all of the separated Legionnaires. Yeah.
Yes. And so it's weird. And then it gets even weirder in this issue. Now, this is the point where you kind of know who, if you're an older, I mean, you don't have to be a constant nonstop Legion member, but if you've been reading for the last year or two, this is where things start to fall into place, especially when we get to Wynneth and we're like, Mech's a good guy and he's selling commodities, and Garth, or not Garth, Garth is a plantation owner, and his wife is dealing with billions of dollars. And then you're like, hey, wait a minute, we see Graham, but where's the other kid? Where is the other kid? And of course, we find out at the end with, again, a very long reading assignment that is like 4 pages long and is not even the end of the issue, right? Because last time I said we got to the credits with Keith Giffen, story and pencils, Tom and Mary Bierbaum, story assistant dialogue, Al Gordon, story assistant inks, Todd Klein, letterer, Tom McGraw, colorist, Mark Wade, editor, and then we've got 4 pages of just text of the Validus plague, where we learn that that Garth is crippled because of his son had a disease, a bacteria that went out and caused people to their bodies to grow and misshape at a weird rate until they found a cure, but the cure was irreversible. So Garth is physically scarred. The son has to be taken away and locked up, and everybody seems to be going on with life. And it's really sad. I mean, it's like a weird ending to the Validus storyline in this.
But it's bizarre because we did hear Darkseid say that Validus, or I think this issue may be the point where they rename him Garridan. But Garridan Rands was always meant to be Darkseid's curse.
Yeah.
And the Validus plague is kind of visually interesting because the horrifying swelling basically turns a regular humanoid
into a
Validus. Yeah. So your hands get misshapen, and at this point, I believe I can't remember if it's his whole arm and leg that are swollen.
I think in the block of text, I think it was just the leg, but I'd have to go back and see. That's why he's got the cane and he's walking around.
Whatever happened with him and Mecht, he and Mecht have reunited, and this issue also does show us Mecht being very calm, maybe too calm.
Oh, like maybe Saturn Girl is controlling him, like gave him a lobotomy or something.
I don't know about that, but I feel like
Doc Savage got a hold of him.
I know what did happen, but I remember reading this and thinking, oh, this guy used to be Lightning Lord. Why is he all of a sudden so calm? And my first thought was Prozac. But you do see Mecht in this issue just being like, yep, all wilts and worry grows in sunshine. Yes, sir.
There's also someplace in here where it talks about rehabilitation. I think that's also in the Omnicron section where it talks about him being rehabilitated. And again, I'm all for prison systems that are good at rehabilitation and are getting people to be back. But that was really shocking for me. And I think that's kind of the point of this first arc of 5 years later is like, let us just shock the reader, shock the reader, shock the reader.
Yes.
With one thing after another.
Is wrong. But at the very least, everything here so far is wrong in a way that is both interesting and at least seems to follow a logical progression. Like, okay, Mordru is free. What is he doing in a Legion-free world? He's set up shop. He has his own little temple.
He's torturing Legion members.
He's torturing people. He's doing his thing. He's just hanging out on whatever planet he's on. I think he's on Tharn, which is where the magic may have gone after Xerox exploded. It's a copy of Xerox.
Okay.
Which means, of course, you lose a lot of fidelity. But he's basically become just another old crime lord guy. He's hanging around. He's got a thing. He's got his little second in command, and it's interesting to just see what happens to Mordru in a world where he's not constantly having to run from Superboy and Mon-El. He settles down and creates an empire and just starts consolidating his power, watching the Legionnaires, having, all of these things and this paranoia of, I'm just going to have my power. I'm going to do my thing. And if anybody shows up, I'll deal with them and I'll, feed them to the Sharkticons over and over and over.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, Mordor is just off doing his thing, hanging out on his little planet that isn't Orlando, but definitely is all castles and drawbridges and stuff.
Yeah. We also get to check in with Ayla and Vi as they are running around Wynneth, the farm sections or the open sections of the Rand's estate.
Naked.
They're not buck naked. They're wearing like loincloths, but nothing else.
They're buck naked.
Well, they're wearing loincloths in the picture, so.
Okay.
Yep. And then
you can just wander around. And do
yeah, no, I mean, they are having a good time together. We did see Ayla do that when she left the Legion, when she went and was with that commune for a long time. This is basically what they were wearing then. And so it feels like this is how she and Vi are just are going to go hang out and try to live their lives if they possibly can and try to reconnect with one another. We also get to see what the Dominators are doing, which is questionable. It feels like they want to engage in commerce, which is weird, but okay. And then finally, we get to see maybe what happened to Mon-El.
Mon-El is dead.
Is he, though? I mean,
he's clearly
one of the big...
because he literally rises from the grave on the last... Spoilers.
Well, I mean... Do we know that it's him? Because all we know is that something exploded or something crashed into something. We don't know. It's not the way that the interaction between Violet and Lightning Lass. It feels like the Shambhala was destroyed, and that Garth was able to buy the statues on the black market and hide them in the wilderness.
Those are the statues from Legion headquarters.
Oh, I thought that those were the statues from Shambhala or Shambhala.
Shanghala. No, Shanghala still exists because
okay. Well, then
Garth actually says in this issue when Roxas ships him Block's body.
Okay. Oh, right. Which is also horrifying, right? He leaves this message to Graham that says, "Hey, Graham, I know you like to build things. Maybe you can put your father's friend back together." And it's just like, what the heck? What a horrible. I mean, again, it's just one thing after another where it's just being mean for mean's sake. And it's just got to be one shock after another for readers who are reading this at the time. But yes, it is implied that Mon-El has arisen. Wow, weird. Third issue, third day. I don't know if that means something, but I also know that the Validus Plague took place in 970 years after a certain plague here on Earth. Interesting.
You mean the senator from Kentucky?
Well, that's not the plague that I was talking about, but sure.
Okay.
And we're going to find out more about the return of Mon-El because he takes the cover on issue number 4, and that's what we will be talking about next time right here on the Legion Clubhouse. If you haven't, head over to the Major Spoilers Discord, jump in the Legion Clubhouse channel, share all of your thoughts. There were some really great comments after the last episode where we were talking about what does the 5-year Legion mean? Was it too hard to get into? Was it not? And a lot of people had some really good insight, personal experience, and so on about this changeover into the 5-year later Legion and more. We'll be back next time to talk about a hero rising from his grave right here on the Legion Clubhouse.
The Legion Clubhouse is a production of Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC, and is produced by Steven Schleicher. Your hosts were Matthew Peterson and Steven Schleicher. You can follow Matthew at Mighty King Cobra and Steven at Major Spoilers. You can follow this podcast on Twitter at Legion Clubhouse. If you have questions or comments, send them to podcast@majorspoilers.com. I'm Jason Inman. Until next time, eat it, Grandpa.
This podcast is copyright 2024 by Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC.